to make sure you make a commitment to have greater diversity in our faculty as well. So we're doing some lower school hiring, there's a lot of retirements. So that's important too, because you want kids, regardless of your background, to be in a place where you feel like, okay, what I see, what I experience, my relationships, it feels right, it's comfortable. So it has to be intentional as well as we're doing. And but last year, unfortunately, we lost some kids, which is very unusual in high school, which is just very rare. And it's for different reasons, you know. But something that we're looking at.
For the students that are here that are in color, or just diverse in religion or socioeconomics or whatnot, is there going to be anything in place to kind of make it, I don't know the right word, more comfortable environment?
That's right. So, for instance, I mean, this is a gender harassment. Yeah. Okay, so that was part of it we talked about. So, you know, if something is not up, right, then you've got to invest in that. So that means investing in time and in expertise. So bring someone in to help us to see. So how can we have safe conversations in the classroom? How can we integrate this more appropriately in the curriculum? How can we set up, if it's, you know, places for kids to talk, or we have to have someone who's going to kind of own that curriculum and that program and things like that. So, I mean, I think that's another statement part. Yeah, you know, this is something we really believe in because we're investing in it. So that's the goal. And then students, right? So you guys coming up with ideas, it's not unlike you're having a student government to think about ways to increase school spirit. We also have groups that can increase awareness, right? Come up with ideas. So much of it's going to be about student government. And then also too, there is a community where, gosh, if somebody feels like they're taken not valued, they feel that their context is accepted, then we think a school that's we want to address that and have those conversations. And I think I'm getting there. And I mean, you guys can tell me, like, do you feel like you can go to teachers or a teacher and say, look, you feel this way? I think we have ways to go, but I think the things are moving in the right direction. I could be wrong, but
Yeah,
it's not my
teachers, it's great to Dr. Wilson from some teachers who are always there. And a lot of people in the history department are always willing to listen and hear everyone's opinions and how they feel. But I kind of feel because we have so many people transfer or leave and the level of diversity kind of went down this year. The majority of the ones taught, like their comfort level kind of went up with what they felt was okay, but what really wasn't. And so I just feel that like.
You mean they being teachers?
No, I
They
mean
being
students.
Got it.
Where it's kind of getting, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but it kind of is getting uncomfortable for some of us. Especially because we are now forced to not, I mean, we're forced to identify not only with like whatever our race is or our religion, but then we're also supposed to kind of like speak out about that if it bothers us. Where, I mean, I have a lot of things that I don't like that if someone says something that, like, I feel obligated that I have to say, like, maybe that's not okay. But I feel like it's something like the environment should already be, because we're such a prestigious school and we're so advanced in so many different ways. I would wish that the minority here wouldn't have to kind of continue to be the minority in these like views and whatnot.
Like you, for some reason that you need to speak on behalf of everybody you represent, where you've never heard that meaning, and you can speak on behalf of every 47-year-old faculty, right? Please cut it, or Mr. Yates, sorry. And you say, I can't share, but so my sister used to tell me, well, they flipped me on a company, they're holding up on so two of my sisters are Korean, and one of my sisters is African American, and so we grew up in a very small town. And they used to say, like, at any time, any conversation ever came up about anything around that, they would look to them and continue to be like, I feel like I could carry. So, you know, from their perspective, growing up in a very different, small, rural community, much more conservative, just by where it was. But yeah, but the fact that you can share that with me, or Mr. Lang, who's they just might not know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't trust them to know, to see him and not make a comment. I would love to say that they wouldn't, but at the same time, kind of they don't know better.
And thinking about, and I'm heartened to hear that you say that this is a community where kids feel safe in when it comes to gender identity. And so I'm hopeful that that same type of acceptance about that would be the same about, not wanting to use words like retarded. But maybe just they've never had that conversation, so you're not aware of the impact it has. I mean, do you hear it in middle school much, Mr. Lang, or is that an issue for the? Because I'm just thinking sometimes it's at adolescence that's when you start using all these words, right, and not having any kind of context in terms of like, okay, these can be actually very hurtful, not just kind of funny words. Yeah.
Not a ton I can tell you with our age group. What we usually find is that students will use inappropriate language about things that they don't know about. So in our own community, we students, just because of the age group I work with, we don't see a lot of students who are prepared. They're just not from a maturity point ready to start talking about their sexual identity again. So it's very rare. It's happened in the past, but now that we talk about it more, and people go, oh, hey, I know people in that community, and that brings it home, and that changes the way they think and the words they use.
Yeah.
And we don't have an opportunity. So while you may sit next to somebody in class who says, I'm transgender or I'm gay or whatever, you typically don't sit in class next to folks that have some other challenge, and so students don't know about it.
Yeah, and the kids who, and Victoria Helms and Mrs. Helms, the program that Mrs. Helms runs, yeah, so the kids that are part of that, it's, it's such a revealing experience for them in that it's not that, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know, it's just, it's nice for them to have the opportunity to interact, right? Normally.
Yeah.
The kid that hasn't that experience, it's hard just to say to a kid, don't say that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't go to those things that is like sports for exceptional athletes that school ran, because the last one I went to, I know there was just a couple of kids. I mean, kids with special needs, they don't filter anything, but it's not like they say anything bad, but it's just they have no problem dancing or moving.
Right.
Oh, that's not okay.
Yeah,
You don't do that. And so I caught my peers. They would laugh at something, not laughing with them, laughing at them.
Yeah.
And someone used the word retarded there, and it just really caught me off guard. But I do have to say, this year, I had Miss Lamont for the first time, and the first day, she says, you can't say the R word, and the number of students that were like, what's the R word? She's like, retarded, you cannot say it in my room. So she at least brings it to their attention. They don't know why, but at least in that costume, you can't say that. And so I really appreciated that. But it's definitely an interesting topic.
I can imagine.
I like what you just said though about laughing with versus laughing at.
Yeah.
Because if we move the scope of the discussion a little wider, if that's our rule, if kind of the way that we guide ourselves, then a lot of things fall into that.
Yeah.
Pick a topic, and it's never okay to laugh at.
Yeah. Right.
In middle school, we do, kid falls down, could be hurt. There's a lot of laughter. We spend a lot of time redirecting that, saying, hey, why is that funny? It's not funny.
The only difference is that in middle school, the kids do laugh at the teachers. That's okay. We're allowed to laugh at
That's
the
it.
teachers.
We actually put that in the job description.
Yeah, they normally kids will laugh at you because they think you're silly. Well, any other questions? Anything you want to know about the school? Yeah.
School's still 6, Mr. Haley?
Huh?
School's still 6? School's still 6 o'clock?
As long as the kids want.
Oh, I have practice.
Generally Well, it could, obviously, I always like to look at the overall, because sometimes you have a really good year, sometimes not as good.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, it's like in a relationship, right? You always want to say, okay,
Yeah.
good day, bad day, no, overall, what's my marriage like, or what's that?
Yeah. I mean, this year has been really hard for me, just because I was close to Jordan, I was
Yeah, of
close to
course.
Eli, I was close to Nathan.
Yeah.
And I mean, Parker is a really smart school, for sure. And I think it's great how competitive everyone is to do well, but I don't think it's necessary to be competitive with me. So it's like, give me my space. If I get an 85 and I studied really hard, don't make me feel bad about that.
I think, yeah, and I think, great points, all great points. And a lot of times in schools, when we find things that work well, they evolve and they grow, they become better. And also too, I agree there are a lot of kids that are missing, and that was something that could be frustrating. But my takeaway was when I talked to the kids who were there, they felt like it was a very powerful experience. Even kids who were kind of, in the middle, or okay, I'm here dutifully because you need to be here. And so what they were telling their friends who were there is like, you miss them. Like that. And there's no greater pressure than peer pressure, right? It can be a positive pressure. And so I know moving forward, whatever the next iteration of the diversity day or the diversity week or whatever it is, that we'll have higher attendance because friends are telling friends, it was really cool. We had some great conversations. So I'm understanding some of the frustrations. I actually thought it was a huge success.
Oh,
And the dodgeball thing, they even said like, yeah, we'll separate these things, but it's the beauty of schools. Mr. Lang has spent his career in schools and amazing middle school head. And middle school, they try a lot of things, and you usually want to start small and do it well, and then it grows. And sometimes that's a pace that's too slow for people like yourself, who are like, look, you're here, I'm here, right? So everybody needs to catch up with me. But the role you play is as kind of informal leaders, is that because you're here, so rather than just looking at the ones who didn't come, you focus on the kids who came and the kids who were there, who maybe now they're acting differently, and we leverage that, and bring the others along, right? And that's what makes you guys great leaders for this or for whatever else you're involved in. So I think it bodes well for the future, notwithstanding some of the frustrations you talked about. But most people, I've heard the same things, including the leadership. They're like, yeah, it was a great day. Even the middle school, I'm sure, heard about the day. The faculty and the middle school kids probably will.
Yeah, well, I have a 10th grade daughter, so.
Oh yes, that's right. So you're
Yeah.
yeah.
Although she goes, I'm terrible at dodgeball, so.
That's another reason.
I almost wish it was like folded just so we could have had a more in-depth conversation. Because, even before the diversity day happened, just in the planning, we had 45-minute periods or rotations. And I was explaining, I think it was to Brianna, how I know there's people in my classes where or even for me, it takes me a couple minutes to kind of get warmed up in talking about these things, so I want to hear what other people have to say or whatever, and kind of gradually gain my momentum. But when you cut in 15 minutes, that only leaves you with 30 minutes left, and that's not including what other people have to say or if the teacher has to say anything. And so if it were an hour or an hour and 15 minutes, it would allow us to kind of, even within our small groups, to further grow.
Are you on the working group next year? Awesome. Good. Because that's you take what worked this year and then this next iteration. So I think those are some good things. I actually popped in on about 4 of the sessions. Dr. Berberay's session, the gentleman from the two guys from USD, Anand was one, we did one, and Dr. Wilson's, they were all great. I didn't go to the film of the discussion this time, but yeah, it seemed like some really good stuff.
I really like the discussion.
That's great.
That's great. Workshop. That was a good one. Just because it was interesting from a person of color, kind of getting the option to choose what we identify as, because there's this exercise where they say there was groups of 8 or 9, and it was you had to come up with a list of 5 things that straight was the most important thing to them. Or
Did
being,
you do it?
I think we had something different.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
just
have
something,
something.
oh, okay.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because I don't think we
Curious.
watched the movie, we watched
Oh,
the
yeah.
movie and then we went to the workshop.
Got it, got it. Okay,
So we
that
did the
was
workshop
just-
first.
Yeah. That's a pretty cool exercise. I don't know what I'm.
it was just, it didn't make anyone uncomfortable, but that little 5-minute thing just kind of at least forced me to see like, okay, you identify as that, but you have to actually be able to get to know the person regardless of if they're gay, straight, female, male, black, white, Asian, Korean, Indian, Middle Eastern, Muslim, Catholic, atheist, whatever. You had to get to know the person to see them as a person first. And I thought that was a very, very impactful experience. And
I'm all below the iceberg.
yeah,
Yeah, I love that.
and I mean, people don't
Or
always.
not below the iceberg, excuse me, below the surface.
Yeah.
Yes, below the surface, excuse me, yeah.
But people don't always take new ideas or getting uncomfortable. They don't like that. But I thought it was just it was so easy, I guess,
Yeah.
for people to take that because they didn't view it as a threat at all.
Yeah.
Because
Thanks, Jen.
it was them.
You can take it.